Well, I just want to welcome you to my Facebook Live, which is going out an hour late tonight, and that's all on Facebook because they've completely changed the way that you do lives off your laptop. So this is just a warning for all of you who are about to move more into an online world, that the whole environment and landscape can change overnight without you actually being aware of it. So I am a little bit tense and uptight, or a lot more tense and uptight than I was an hour earlier. I was feeling a lot more relaxed, and maybe there's a huge lesson in this because I'm talking about body language in the online world. And if you are watching, Hermine, I can see that you're on now. Thank you and welcome. If you are watching, this is a great lesson for you on the topic that I'm talking about tonight, to be able to pick up on cues and clues as to whether or not the client who is sitting in front of you is feeling stressed or relaxed. So if you are watching, please let me know if you're watching live, or if you're watching on the replay in the comment section below. And I'd also love to know whereabouts in the world you're watching from. So just drop me a quick one-liner. But thank you so much for joining me. And again, my apologies for being an hour late. So it's often said in the political world that what happens in a day is the equivalent of what happens in a year, or you can experience an entire year in 1 week. And I don't think that down safely sitting in little South Africa, we always feel like we're at the bottom end of the world. I think that the lockdown that is about to come into place at midnight tonight, has taken a lot of us by surprise. Even if people, could have turned around and said to us, well, you should have seen that it was coming. But coronavirus has fundamentally changed our entire world, and has changed the world that we are going to be going back into. So I wanted to respond to what we are experiencing now, and for those of us living in South Africa, it's probably become very, very real for the first time. And that's why I chose for this live to focus on what we need to be aware of as we transition our businesses more and more into the online space, and in particular focusing on body language. So let's do a quick experiment. And while I'm doing this live, I'd really appreciate it if you could just continually hitting the likes, so that I know that I am live, because I went through this entire broadcast at 5 o'clock this afternoon, only to be informed by Facebook that it hadn't broadcast my live. So I will appreciate to have me, if I can rely on you to be my person, just hitting the likes so that I know that I'm still online. But back to the experiment. Close your eyes. Hi Delia, welcome. Close your eyes and imagine a bottle of apple cider vinegar. So you take the cap off and you pour some out into a tablespoon. Now I'm sure already you can imagine yourself getting some of those really, really strong, pungent whiffs of the apple cider vinegar. And as you bring the tablespoon closer to your nose and mouth, you can smell it more and more strongly. And then, without even diluting it, you take gulp the whole spoon down. Now, if your saliva glands started working overtime, as I was describing this is probably the single biggest and most powerful thing that we have in the online world, which is our mirror neurons firing in response to something that we are seeing in our environment. So I was just describing an experience, and even my saliva glands have started working again. But by just describing that experience, it's possible that your mirror neurons started firing as your mind, started imagining the experience. And again, when we are working online and with our clients, our minds are subconsciously all the time picking up little clues and cues from our clients as much as if we are sitting with them in the offline or real world. But before I go any further, you know that it's my mission to make marketing yourselves online as easy and authentic as possible. So I just wanted to tell you that in the link to this video, there is, or in the introduction to this video, there is a link to a free 5-day training that I'm going to be running next week about magnifying your marketing mojo online, so that we can get you marketing your coaching practices while we are in a lockdown world. And I'll be training every day next week at 1 p.m. South African Standard Time. So I do hope that wherever in the world you are, you'll be able to join me for my lunch next week. If you don't know, if we haven't met before, my name is Megan Hudson, and I'm a dog-loving, tree-hugging business and marketing coach. I've had almost 20 years experience in the coaching industry, and almost a decade in brand marketing and advertising prior to that. So I worked for one of the top ad agencies in the world, and also worked on some of our best known South African and international brands. And I specialize in helping coaches. Hi Monica, lovely to see you, welcome. I specialize in helping coaches like you find and define your niche, which I think is one of the best ways of future-proofing our coaching practice, because we get really clear on our messaging, and also teaching you how to market your practice without spending a cent. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how I do that, you can check out my one-on-one VIP coaching package, which is on my website, which is www.nicheintelligence.co.za. So let's get back to body language in an online world. It's really easy at the moment for us to get caught up in this whole in a negative spiral and a negative mindset with everything that is going on. And a lot of us, I acknowledge, are holding a tremendous amount of anxiety because the coronavirus is forcing us into a completely different space from that which we've been used to operating in. I've had so many coaches reaching out to me in the last week alone, sending me emails about how overwhelmed they feel about having to shift completely into an online space, how much fear they experience about how they're going to actually be perceived and come across online. And so that is one of the reasons why I decided to launch my free training, just to really deal with the fears and the mindset, and then actually go through a whole lot of practical things that you can do to ease you gently into a different way of being in the world, which pardon me, I think is also quite alien to the pure coaching world, where we put so much emphasis on being able to be with our clients one-on-one, meeting with them face-to-face, so that we can pick up the whole meta coaching conversation that is happening from not only the verbal cues but also the non-verbal cues that are being sent out. So I'm going to try and give you a couple of practical hints and tips in this video on how you can manage this new situation, because your clients are also going to probably be feeling quite a bit of anxiety, and what we don't want to have happen is for you not to be able to support them in a way that will, in other words, I don't want, if you were going to be seeing a certain number of clients during the course of the week next week, I don't want them to be cancelling on you because they are feeling so much overwhelm about technology and how they're going to cope meeting with you online rather than face to face. The online world can be an absolute rabbit hole, and there are so many different types of software out there and ways of meeting. There's WhatsApp video, there is Skype, there is Zoom, and I probably haven't even touched on some of the kind of less well-known and popular ways of meeting and conducting business in the online space. And we also hold a lot of fears, realistic or not, about how we will show up online. And I know that, so I'll talk from my own experience. It took me a long time to actually bite the bullet and start doing online live trainings and video, because I was so conscious about my appearance and how I would look, and my double chin, and being overweight, and I wanted to lose more weight. And at one stage I had, towards the end of last year, I'd grown my hair quite long, and I wanted to wait until I had my hair cut short, and oh man, every excuse under the book. But we do hold a lot of fears about how other people will perceive us and judge us, and how we will be received in the online space, especially when we're not used to it. And I want to encourage you, or I want to again share from my personal experience, the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more acclimatized you get to it, and the more confident you will become, just as with everything. And remember back to when you were first learning how to be a coach. You might have felt really clumsy and awkward getting to grips with whatever models or frameworks you were learning, but the more you used them, the more you became, you go from incompetent, unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. And all of you now, after having coached for a couple of years, I'm sure have shifted into the unconscious competent space. And the same will happen, I do promise you, with working online with your clients. Let me tell you another story that I found terribly amusing. There's one of our prominent female politicians, and she's somebody that I think is quite gutsy, and I quite like her chutzpah. And she was doing a Skype interview from her home one day. It was after hours. Something had blown up in the political arena, and she'd been contacted by one of our national TV news services to give her comment and opinion on what had happened. And like most women, she had obviously arrived home earlier that evening, and after a day of being really tightly bound and constricted, the first thing that she'd done was shrugged out of her bra, and she chucked it over the back of her sofa in her lounge. And where she was conducting this interview, her laptop was set up so that you could actually see her lounge in the background, and so her underwear for the entire interview was there for all eyes to see on national TV. But what the story also illustrates is that there is more to working online with someone than what we are just seeing in the screen. So for example, that particular story that I told you, the story that we can put to it is of a woman who was in her comfortable shoes of space, her personal space. She'd come home and she'd kind of, relaxed after a day in a high pressure job. She'd probably also kicked off her high heels and, really, really gotten a little bit more comfortable. And this is someone who was feeling safe in her environment and off her guard. And actually, isn't that how we want our coaching clients to feel when we talk about building that coaching container, that safe space for our coaching clients? Don't we actually, even if we are meeting with them face to face in the workplace, want them to feel as comfortable as they would feel at home in their own environment? So again, getting back to the example of this politician, if we just looked at the person who was talking on the screen, she appeared to be her usual, very confident, very intelligent self. I'm not saying that the fact that we could see her bra over the back of her sofa made her appear unintelligent, but what I am telling you is that if you looked beyond her, there were clues to the fact that she was feeling comfortable and relaxed in that particular space. But it's an interesting also an interesting example of what I was talking about last week in my live, where I spoke about managing our personal, public, and our personal and private brands. And here is an example where there was an interesting collision of this public and private persona, and unfortunately for her, it took place in the public eye. But what we can learn from this is that we need to be attuned to pick up on the smallest possible detail when we are working in the online space. So look at your client, but look beyond your client and see what additional dimensions or clues you can pick up on. What does the environment tell you? What you see in the background? So because I do live broadcasts regularly, I have curated my background. I've kind of normally I've got vision boards on the wall behind me, and but I try and create for my live broadcasts a very clean and cleared space, a kind of zen space. But that's not the norm, and you're going to be dealing with your clients in a situation where you can also look at what is happening around them. So what can you see in the environment? Is it tidy or untidy? Is there a lot of noise going on? Are there a lot of distractions, especially now that a lot of your clients like you will be working from home and will possibly be having to manage with their partners or husbands who gets to use the office to do their online meeting at what time, as well as chasing children out of the office, or in my case it's my dogs and animals. And we need to also be very mindful about the kind of environment that we want to create with our clients. So again, we want to create a sense of safety, comfort, and assurance. We want to create ease. And think back to where you normally met your clients face to face in the real world. What would happen? So you would get together in a meeting room and you would probably help yourselves to coffee or something to drink before the meeting started. Or if you were meeting your client in a restaurant or somewhere, you'd order something to drink. Maybe if you were planning on having a meal together, you'd place your order for your meal and then kind of settle into the coaching conversation. And we need to take that same practice but translate that so that we create ease and comfort. So one of my tips to you, one of my practical tips, is to say, if you are meeting with your clients online now, send them a WhatsApp a few minutes before the meeting is due to start to say, I'm really looking forward to meeting with you, and I'm just going to go and grab myself a quick cup of coffee. Maybe you want to do the same, and I will see you at whatever time the meeting is supposed to start. It's also useful if your client is used to you kind of knocking on the door of the office and the two of you walking together to a meeting room in a corporate environment to have your coaching session. Your client's not going to have those cues. In other words, your client is not going to have you knocking on their office door to say, "Hi, I'm here." So to send them a WhatsApp or a message, or just to quickly call them before the meeting to say, let's kind of finish what we're doing, and this is just the 5-minute countdown so that you can get prepared, go to the loo, whatever, so that neither of you are left sitting twiddling your thumbs on Skype or Zoom or whatever, waiting for the other person to actually hook up and get online and remember that there is a coaching session taking place. So again, I want you to think back to the offline world where you are meeting with your clients face to face, and say, what were the clues and cues and things that were happening to signal that we were shifting into our coaching space, and how can I use the tools available to me to recreate those cues and clues. You might also want to include the habit of doing a a practice with your client, a centering practice, so that they can mentally delineate and disassociate from what the work that they were doing, remembering now that they're probably going to be working from their home environment, so their work and home space are becoming fused. And it will be helpful if you help them with some kind of a practice that will show them that these spaces are different, that they're now moving into coaching space. And perhaps even encourage them to move away from their desk, to clear their desk so that they're not distracted by the work that they were busy with. I wonder if one of you who is watching could just drop me a little like or a heart or something, just so that I know that things are still happening, because I did have a glitch with Facebook earlier when I tried to do this broadcast at 5 o'clock. I'd really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So manage the online environment with as much respect and attention to detail as you would the physical coaching environment. And I remember some research being done into how the place and space in which the coaching was taking place impacted and sometimes negatively on the quality of the coaching conversation. And one of the examples that came up in this research was where coachees said that they were actually being coached in the same room where retrenchments were being done, or performance appraisals were being done. So they had like a subconscious association in their mind in the meeting room that was being used for coaching with other possibly less pleasant experiences in the workplace. So again, we need to consider our client and suggest that they move from their work desk to a space where they would feel a little bit more at ease and relaxed. And one of the advantages now of working from home and being on lockdown is that we can actually be sitting out on our verandas, on our balconies, or even in the garden, which is really, really unusual. And we need to consider this as a unique privilege that we can share with our clients. Another thing that you need to be aware of is that when you are working online, so with a lot of the software like Zoom, WhatsApp video, and Skype, often there's a little, your face will appear in the bottom corner of the screen. And there was some other research that was done with coaches who actually admitted that they found the little icon of their face quite distracting when they were working online with their clients, because every now and again they'd look to see how they were showing up and what they looked like, and if their hair was still straight. In fact, for my broadcasts, I actually shift my where I'm showing up, I shift onto an extra screen it'll be on your right, on my left, which is why I keep glancing over in that direction, so that I am not distracted by how I'm showing up on the screen, but rather can focus on talking directly to the camera and directly to you, and maintaining as much eye contact as possible. And we know from neuroscience that eye contact is, for us humans, one of the most important ways of communicating, and that babies actually, the very first way that they start interacting with their parents is through eye tracking. That's how important eye contact is. So I really do want to encourage you to have this discussion with your coaching client about whether or not they do find it distracting, and the two of you might agree to put a little post-it note over your profile during the course of the coaching session. But more than ever before, we have to be attentive to both what is said and how it is being said. We need to watch for pauses. We need to look at where our clients' eyes shift to. We need to pay careful attention to facial expressions and to that part of the body that you actually can see, So are their shoulders kind of rising as they are talking to you? Are they getting more and more expressive with their hands? Can you see that they're getting more and more worked up about something that they're, situation that they might be describing to you? Take your cues as much from their body language and what is happening in the online space as you would have in the offline space. Again, there was some really interesting research around how millennials and the generations that have followed them, so people who've been born from the 1983 onwards, have what we would call lower levels of social intelligence, and that they are less able to identify, interpret, and send accurate social cues that are in alignment with the message that they're trying to put across. Be aware of this, and I think that we are going to see this highlighted more and more as we shift online and have fewer nonverbal cues to work with. But we also need, as coaches, to remember that we need to be comfortable with pauses and silence in the online world. We do not have to fill the gaps just because we've shifted from working offline to working online with our clients. And we need to be sensitive enough to give our clients as much time and space as they need to process what they are thinking and feeling as we would have in the real world. And again, here's something you might want to recontract with your client, because the two of you are working together differently, is that if you notice that your client is silent for what you perceive to be an extraordinarily long period of time, ask your client for permission to ask them to unpack and describe what is going through their minds while they're processing whatever it is that they're processing. Again, it's all about recontracting for our new reality. And it's probably important to have a conversation with your clients about the implications and differences between working with them face-to-face and online, and to specifically discuss how the two of you are going to manage this new situation together, and how perhaps your client might be able to assist you by raising their levels of verbal communication to compensate for the lower levels of non-verbal communication. Something else that you might also want to discuss with your client is how much of your body you are actually going to show during the coaching conversation. Again, explaining to your client how important it is for you to be able to see your client, see as much of your client as possible. But let's acknowledge, those of us who are used to working in the online world, that for a lot of us, what you see from the waist up is, really groomed and polished. But underneath the desk are our pajama pants and slippers, if the truth be told. And I've seen lots and lots of memes actually showing that reality. Your client also might feel uncomfortable, sitting so stationary for such a long period of time. So encourage them to get up and walk around. They might feel more comfortable if they use whatever device they're using for the coaching conversation. They might feel more comfortable if they put it on top of a chest of drawers or something, so that they can actually stand during the coaching conversation. So have these discussions, and also be very, very aware of the lighting. So from your perspective as well as from your client's perspective. I have seen so many people in meetings, in online meetings, from their homes, where they've actually got a window behind them, a bright window behind them, and that doesn't help at all, because it means that what you see on the video feed is actually just this huge big kind of black outline, and you can't actually see clearly, and this is, use the coach and your client. So do try as far as possible to have a plain background like I've got behind me, and my office window is directly opposite me. Don't forget that you and your client are probably going to both be dealing with nerves about this different way of working with each other. And if you're not familiar with working online, I really do want to encourage you to take this opportunity to reach out to friends and family and practice on them. So WhatsApp video call people, and explain to your friends and family that because you professionally are having to shift the way that you work with your clients, you'd appreciate becoming more at ease in this new way of working, and that's why you are video calling them, or and make also, if you're going to be using Zoom or Skype, make sure that you are familiar with the technology, make sure you know how it works. If you're going to be doing group coaching, how to do breakaway rooms and all of those kinds of things. And just be aware that your client may also be feeling the same level of nerves and hesitation. So do whatever you can to explain how you're going to be working with them and to put them at ease. And don't forget that even though we are not meeting face to face with our clients, we are still making some kind of an impression. So it's super important that you don't get caught unawares and that you show up as much at ease and show up with as much confidence as you would in the offline world if you're meeting your clients face to face. I hope that you've learned something useful, taken something useful out from this, but I think the most important thing for me is to have a discussion with your client about the new logistics of your relationship and about what you as the coach may need them to change in order for the coaching to be as effective in the online world as it is in the offline world. So don't forget that I'm just going to check and see if there have been any questions. Oh, Hermine. So yes, you're acknowledging the fear of judgment and how much it's holding you back. There's someone for everyone in this world. And I mean, your coaching clients, when you meet with them face to face, they haven't kind of, pulled a nasty face or been overtly judgy. You haven't noticed that. So similarly, in the online world, if you put yourself out there and make yourself visible, I really do want to assure you that you will attract the kinds of people who would normally feel comfortable with you in the offline world. I really do want to assure you of that. It isn't that enormously different. And then your other comment was with the kids at home, it is so difficult and you have no space that is soundproof. So again, it is about managing your environment and being, it's difficult. It's really difficult for moms. You've got kids that have been at home now, for a couple of days, and because we are on lockdown and they can't go out and do their normal things and play with their friends and everything, they must be going stir crazy. And my heart goes out to parents who are under lockdown through the coronavirus. But you still need to work, and I think having a conversation with your children, but also explaining to your clients that because you are working from home, you are a mom, and the reality is that there is going to be noise going on in the background. I've got 4 very hyperactive dogs who I'm not going to be able to walk regularly like I normally do. And so when they don't go for their normal long walks, just like children, they're a lot noisier and a lot more hyperactive and a lot more demanding of my attention. But I am a dog lover. I'm a dog mom, and my clients, the people that I deal with, are aware of the fact that part of my world revolves around my fur babies. And I think that your clients are human, and they will respect the fact that you are still trying to show up as professionally as you possibly can under abnormal circumstances. So again, don't try and be perfect in imperfect circumstances. Really accept the fact that we are all doing our very level best at the moment with the tools that we have. Well, thanks for staying online with me, and thanks for joining me this evening. Don't forget that I am doing a 5-day training, free training next week in this Facebook group that you're in now. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to join me for lunch next week. So let's make sure that we continue to see our personal and professional brands blossom and bloom in the online world in a way that is really in alignment with who we are. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care, stay safe, and stay well. Ciao.